And we're live. We
Live.
actually know how to podcast. That's surprising. After a 3-week hiatus for a myriad of reasons, the Ralphie Report Buffalo's Breakdown podcast makes its triumphant return, and we have quite a bit of things to talk about. The last time we hopped on here. Oh, wait, there's echo. Okay, yeah, we have a lot to talk about. First and foremost, probably the Alamo Bowl. That sucks. Not fun. I don't even remember the final score off the top of my head. I should probably have this. It was a lot to a little. We got smoked. It was not good. Let me pull that up. What are your thoughts on Alamo Bowl, Jake?
The score was not really the important part. It was sort of the I guess the feeling around the game. You know, all we needed to know, it was a lot to a little. It was 30-something to 7.
I got it. Give me 1 second. It's loading the stat broadcast page.
Jeez Louise.
We're really prepared, guys. We're really prepared. Okay, it was 36-14. It was not awesome.
14, yeah.
And then that just sucks. Like I would be so content and so happy if we never played a football game in San Antonio ever again. Like why every single time they send our ass down there do we get our asses beat? It's just so frustrating. There were obviously high points of the game. Like Travis had a fantastic game. That's like the only silver lining, but Shedeur did not play his best. You know, like I think the moment in my heart that I knew the game was lost was when Travis had that incredible play and they go and they're at like the 8-yard line and then Shedeur takes a 25-yard sack just running backwards and then they miss the field goal. I was like, it's one of those days. This is like, it's a Nebraska game again. And that is just a mega bummer because first and foremost, that's not indicative of what this team is. This is a legendary CU team. Obviously, you don't come up with a bowl win. You don't play in the conference championship game. But just considering where we were 2 years ago from 1-11 to being in a position to play in that Alamo Bowl, and that's a really good bowl game. It's pretty crazy. Obviously not indicative of the season. Indicative thing of the season. What I said after the game was don't let this game ruin the season for you. Yes, it sucked. It was awful, but it was a really fun season. And a lot of really fun moments. And, we have another Heisman Trophy in Boulder. But I guess that's enough being positive. That's enough copium. What went wrong in your mind, Jake?
And maybe this is just my job to come in and just be the bearer of bad news, but a lot. Right, a lot. It's hard to put your finger on one thing, but I think a lot of the things that went wrong in the Alamo Bowl were sort of similar to the things that went wrong in the Kansas game. I think this team got exposed to some extent. They're not maybe as complete of a team as maybe we thought for a stretch of games there after we racked up a handful of conference wins in a row. I think maybe the expectations got a little higher than they should be. And myself included, we started to forget that CU did have some severe issues. While those issues were much improved from 2023 to 2024, a lot of those same issues still existed, whether it be zone coverage or the offensive line playing consistent ball. But one thing that stood out to me, and I'd love to hear your input on this because maybe this opinion just exists in the vacuum that is me, my experience. But I sort of noticed that Shedeur was not taking the gimmies in the Alamo Bowl. It seemed like the CU offense wanted to have the big plays, and that's understandable. This is a bowl game. This game, this is not a game that people are going to look back and pretend like it's a playoff game or something. This is a bowl game. And a lot of guys didn't even play, starters. We were missing a few guys on defense and transfers and stuff like that. So But the one thing I noticed down the stretch of this game is at times, I don't know that the outcome would have been different, but at times Shador did have the check down. Shador had the 5-yard hook. He had the drag route right over the middle, right in front of his face. And Shador was waiting for that second level or third level read. He was waiting for the receiver to create some separation down the field. And by the time that receiver got separation, if they did at all, Shador was on his butt. So I think the mentality with that game was a little bit different for Shador in the offense. I think they came out, they wanted to hit the big plays. They wanted to really put themselves, they wanted to put some highlight tape on the record. And unfortunately, that cost them playing sound football, running the ball, which is already hard enough for them to do, and taking the gimmies, the 5-yard, the 10-yard hooks, the stuff that's going to move the ball down the field. I feel like was not the game plan, and it cost them because ultimately BYU knew CU wanted to hit those big plays, and those plays were often blanketed. So that's why you saw Shador not get the ball out of his hands quickly. That's why you saw him scramble around and get put on his butt. The offensive line didn't forget how to play magically in a couple weeks. It was a combination of both. The BYU pass rush is brutal, but Shador definitely looked to push the ball down the field in situations where we just needed to get first downs, not touchdowns. So I don't think that should affect Shador's draft stock. I'm going to be up on a soapbox advocating for Shador to be drafted as high as anybody else. But at the same time, this is something that's sort of haunted Shador his entire college career, scrambling around, not taking the checkdowns. A lot of people, if they are critics of Shador Sanders, will say he doesn't hit throws on time. He doesn't hit throws in rhythm. And a lot of times his only big plays come from improvised plays. I don't think he did anything to help his case in that scenario, but all of the talent is still there. He's still a phenomenal player, and whatever NFL team picks up Shador is going to get it right. Once he gets put in a system, once he gets put in a scheme, once he starts to gel with an offense, him not taking the checkdowns or getting the ball out of his hand quickly, that's something almost every quarterback that's talented has suffered from. And it's something I totally think is going to be fixable for Shador, something he will fix. And I still think he warrants a very high first-round pick. So I'd love to hear your opinion, Ryland, if you thought, Shador held the ball a little bit too long, if you thought that this should affect his draft stock, a performance like this, and ultimately, if you think that, long-term, is this something Shador is going to be able to get away from, if you even think it's an issue at all?
I guess I'll take a step back. I think you're 100% right about him holding on to the ball too long and not taking the yards that the defense gave to him and looking for the big play. I think there's two reasons for that. The first reason is they were actively trying to put up tape before the draft, specifically to like Will and Jimmy Horn. Those are the two guys that they're actively looking to beef up their draft stock. So, and they weren't shy about it. Deion said in multiple press conferences, not directly, but he like heavily alluded to the fact that they're gonna find a way to get them the ball so they can put up some tape, specifically Jimmy, because Jimmy has missed all the games since Texas Tech. And that maybe saying that super publicly, like BYU knew what they were trying to do. And so that was just their mentality going into the game, was that they were going to be actively looking for the big play. And then obviously they come out of the gates and they look like they're asleep, and BYU just trounces on them. Basically, that onside kick was awful. You're down 17-0 at the end of the first quarter. And Jake, we've talked about this kind of throughout the season, but this team is just not good playing from behind because they can't run the football. You're at an inherent disadvantage if you can't run the football. The defense knows exactly what you're going to do, especially if you're down 17 and the lead continues to build throughout the game. So Shador is kind of single-handedly trying to dig him and his team out of that hole and kind of playing hero ball. In that situation, I don't think it's the wrong thing to do. You need points and you need them fast, and you're going to need to stack scores. You can't go score a touchdown on like an 18 play drive. You're going to need like quick supplemental drives if you're going to come back into this game. And that's what he was looking for. Granted, some of those sacks were really bad, but that just sucks. Do I think it's going to affect his draft stock? I don't know. From the sounds of it, the Titans like Cam Ward. I don't know how long they've been attached to the idea of picking him. If both Shedeur and Cam Ward are on the board, I don't know if this was a pre-Alamo Bowl or post-Alamo Bowl thing. Somebody's going to pick him in the top 5. I'm not worried about that. These rumors that like these teams don't even have them and they're like mocked in the first round are ridiculous. All you have to do is like watch 3 Colorado games. It doesn't even matter which ones, except for maybe the Alamo Bowl and Nebraska game, and you can see really what's going on here. Like, this guy's incredible. Yeah. Another thing that I think that we maybe slightly underestimated was the impact that Nakai Hill-Green had on the defense, and specifically in the run game. It became increasingly clear that he was probably the single most important player in terms of run prevention on this team. And when you don't have a guy like him, BYU can just run it down your gut, and that's what they did with guys like LJ Martin and stuff. It was a bloodbath. It was a recipe for disaster, really, and it wasn't a great matchup for CU at the end of the day. BYU, they came to play and they went for the kill early, and it worked. And you know, it's just tough when that sort of stuff happens. But I'm trying to think of what else. As in terms of the offensive line was in a tough position with Phillip Houston getting hurt in that Kansas game. That was tough, especially because you don't really have a solid guy at right tackle. You don't have your guy, is what I mean. So that it's, you know, they're experimenting, kind of like plugging and playing with guards and stuff with guys, but it just wasn't the answer. And BYU has a tremendous pass rush. It's not a team to be just trying to plug and play to try to protect the quarterback. It was a lot went wrong. Some people had good games though, you know, forced turnovers. Cam had a pick, DJ had a pick. Just trying to be semi-positive. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, and there's a couple positives on the offense. I think we saw the offense get moving a little bit on a few drives. We saw a few big plays open up. You know, when the ball was in Travis Hunter's hands, there was a chance it could go to the house at any point. I think that was in the second quarter. Travis came back to the ball, found a little bit of open field, and he turned that ball into a touchdown. You know, that play was a perfect summation of why Travis Hunter should be one of the first skill players off the board, regardless of the controversy around him playing both positions at the next level. View him as a receiver, a corner, or both. You know, he played phenomenally. I think Travis Hunter was the biggest bright spot of the entire Alamo Bowl. You know, I think despite CU looking a little bit lethargic, Travis Hunter still looked like his typical self for the most part. And if the ball did get in his hands, he was able to do something with it. So there are some positives, you know, probably a lot more negatives than positives, but, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, all we can do now is look forward to next year. You know, that game didn't have playoff implications or anything like that. So, you know, now we can, you know, now CU can evaluate and look at how they're gonna go forward next year and how they're gonna keep, you know, trying to continue this upward climb, you know, and try to get on top of the Big 12 here in the next few years.
Yeah, and we'll later in the podcast When Jack joins us, we'll talk recruiting and the guys that we've brought in to help sustain that. But this team has built a legacy here, and like a standard to live up to, which is really good going forward. And I do think, I'll be outspoken, I think that we're going to be a lot better than people think we will be next year. Alamo Bowl was tough though. Is there anything else you want to touch on Alamo Bowl wise before we forget this game ever happened and moved on?
Alamo Bowl wise, no. I hope, not that anyone would necessarily be listening to this, but I hope all the seniors, go on to either get drafted or just go on to have some level of success in football. We're going to see a handful of buffs at the next level playing on Sundays, and so it's a great thing to say goodbye to those dudes, and we're going to go watch a lot of them have success. But great time to look forward, and very uncertain and very fun times in Boulder, and we've got there's a lot more to talk about, so we can go away from the
we can go away from the Alamo Bowl,
from the sadness that is the Alamo Bowl.
NFL draft talk, that's more fun, right? You talk about the draft, I would say so. It's fun to be in a position where you can be a Colorado Buffaloes blog and podcast, and we can have a whole segment on the NFL draft. That's how telling. That's telling of how good this team is. Jake is our resident draft guy. Jake is a draft savant here, so he's gonna be leading the charge on the Ralphie Report draft content here. But I mean, the top, I guess, like what, 24-ish picks are cemented now after the first round of the playoffs. Where do you see Shedeur and Travis landing?
Yeah, I think, and I do have an article up on this, a little selfless plug. We do this once or twice an episode, probably last week, but I wrote an article talking about Shedeur and Travis's draft outlook. I think they have each, they're in very different scenarios here. No matter how you break this down, no matter how you slice the pie, there's really only 3 quarterbacks going into this draft that you could even think could be drafted in the first round, in my opinion. Will Howard, Drew Aller. I think Will Howard has helped his draft stock a lot here these last few weeks from Ohio State, but I don't view him as real. Right, but I don't view him still as a real first-round pick, or who knows? I guess who knows? It's a quarterback. So, and Drew Aller, just absolutely, if he had any chance of going to the draft or being picked in the top 2 or 3 rounds, dude just squandered those hopes. He played one of the worst games I've seen.
One throw.
Right.
If
he played well.
Throw that one pick, I think he probably would have declared.
Well, there was a few picks in that game that were awful.
Oh, they were bad, but the last one that took him out of the game was pretty gnarly.
Right, and there were a few.
He earned himself another year of college football with that one.
Right, and there were a couple picks that he threw that were called back due to penalties. Sort of unrelated penalties. He missed some throws. He had some ugly throws. So Aller is sort of out on the draft now. And we're really looking at 3 dudes at the top of this draft. We've got Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and Jalen Milroe.
Is Jalen Milroe coming back?
He is not coming back. He declared for the draft.
Okay. I didn't know.
And the most comparable player in recent memory to Milroe is going to be Anthony Richardson. He went as high as the 4th pick. Milroe has more snaps under center. He's got the same sort of body type, sort of the same set of skills. There's really nothing to suggest one way or another that Milroe would either go higher than 4 or lower than 4. I sort of view him as a mid to late first-round pick. I think someone quarterback needy could take a risk on him. I could totally see that. But as far as at the top of the draft, I personally see 2 guys. I see Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And I see a handful of quarterback needy teams. I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but the Titans, we talked about them. They drafted Will Levis 2 years ago, but who knows what could happen there. New GM coming into to Tennessee as well. So with them holding the number 1 pick, I believe, ball is in Tennessee's court. New GM, new culture. Whether or not they go with Will Levis or not, I don't think so. I think Will Levis is probably not going to be the starting quarterback for the Titans. So, like Ryland said, that sort of suggests they'll pick the best quarterback in the draft. Ryland and I have seen nothing to link Shedeur Sanders to the Titans at this point, and a lot of people would grade Shedeur or Cam Ward a little bit higher than Shedeur Sanders right now. So, the likely spot with the number 1 pick seems like Cam Ward. So, in my mind, that leaves a few landing spots for Shedeur. And Ryland, feel free to jump in and add at any time if you feel like. But you've got the Browns following up the Titans. They do need a quarterback more than likely, but they're still locked into that Deshaun Watson contract here for about another year or two. So they're going to have to pay Deshaun Watson one way or another. As you guys remember, that was the first fully guaranteed contract of that size in NFL history. So the Browns, if they want to draft Shedeur Sanders, their cap space is going to be miserable, and Shedeur probably will sit. So part of me thinks the Browns might trade back. They might try to start building up the rest of the roster in preparation to move on from Deshaun Watson. Or they might draft Shedeur and move on from Deshaun Watson, even though they have to pay him. And the more likely spots, teams that there's no really restrictions around, teams that could acquire a quarterback and not really have to give up much, or not have to shift any contracts around, or just be financially unstable. Those teams would be the Giants and the Raiders. The Giants and the Raiders are both sitting, I think at the number, Giants at 3, Raiders around 5. I think they're either 5 or 6. I want to say 5. Giants and Raiders both have no cap restrictions, plenty of free cap. Definitely need quarterbacks, big market, lots of sponsorships, ads, that sort of thing. Shedeur has been linked to both of those teams, from posting the Raiders on his social media to meeting with the owner of the Raiders last offseason to posting the Giants cleats before the Alamo Bowl, and going outside the Heisman ceremony to throw the ball with Malik Neighbors. Both of those teams he's been heavily linked to. And I could realistically see him going either way if he's available past the number 1 pick, especially if the Browns are looking to trade out. So that's my thoughts on the Shedeur draft situation right now, maybe a little bit more detail than you guys wanted. But that's essentially what I talked about in my article. And then Travis is a much more fun situation because Travis is going to play quarterback and receiver if he has a choice. Dion said Travis will be back in college if he's not viewed as a two-way player. So I think those conversations will probably take place around his pro day and leading up to the draft. I could very much see Dion putting out feeler questions to these GMs and scouts that show up. How do you guys view Travis? So on and so forth. And if the feedback Dion is getting is that we're only going to play Travis on defense at corner, I don't think that will be the case. I don't think anyone thinks that will be the case. But Dion has sort of made an idle threat that Travis will come back to college if people don't view him as a two-way player. So, look out for his pro day. I think there'll be a lot of media surrounding that, that event. And but ultimately, Travis should be a first-round pick. He should be high first-round pick. And I sort of view this situation similar to how I viewed Lamar Jackson coming out of the draft. Obviously, Lamar fell all the way to 32. Which isn't going to happen with Travis, I don't believe. But here's how I think those situations are similar. When Lamar Jackson came into the league, people didn't know what position he was going to play. Everyone viewed him a little bit differently. And ultimately, people knew if you wanted to bring Lamar Jackson in, you're going to have to build a team around him, and you're going to have to commit your scheme to one that benefits Lamar Jackson. And that's how it's going to be with Travis Hunter. There needs to be a team that takes a risk on Travis. They are going to have to commit to playing him on both sides of the ball, and it's going to have to be a fit both ways. And so you would imagine of one of these 32 teams, someone is going to view Travis as a true two-way all-star player, which he is. And they're going to take a risk on him. Whether or not, teams decide to move up and maybe go towards Will Campbell or Will Johnson or, Tet McMillan, a player who's true, position player. That's yet to be seen. I think that's a real possibility. And so Travis could slip a few picks farther than we expect, but ultimately I would expect Travis to be, I would expect him to be picked by the first skill position needy team, that's available, barring some crazy unforeseen circumstance, or barring, teams not viewing Travis as a two-way player. So I think naturally that team is probably the Patriots. Patriots have Drake May. They have a good foundation. They definitely need help at receiver, and it wouldn't hurt to get help at corner and potentially move on from one of those bigger contracts as they try to rebuild here. So my landing spot for Travis is either the Patriots, or the next pick after the Patriots would be Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville is a fun location because Travis grew up in Georgia and in Southern Florida. Jacksonville is the perfect spot right between those two locations, maybe probably 2.5, 3 hours from both, where he grew up, as a young kid and then into high school. I think Jacksonville would be a fun spot for Travis. They have Trevor Lawrence. They've got a lot of good assets on offense and defense, a great pass rush. If they've got Travis, they could definitely start him day one on both offense and defense. And he would be the hometown kid. So I think my personal favorite landing spot for Travis would be the Jacksonville Jags, but it's going to be up to what the Patriots do the pick before them.
Yeah.
I went over a lot there. I'm sorry.
I know. I was going to say, there you go. Hey, go off.
That was my
you didn't leave me with a whole lot. I mean, you basically said everything. Yeah. I don't think that Travis falls outside of the top 10. Although there is a possibility that Travis slides a bit, solely because of the fact that he's such a unique player. And I think there's a possibility that people get scared of that. Don't know what to do with him. We don't want to commit to him playing both ways. And Dion, I think, will force a team into a position to which Travis will play both ways. As for that's pretty cut and dry. I don't think he's going to fall further than 6, which is the Jags, right? Is that 6? Yeah. So I don't think he falls further than 6. I think that if the Patriots don't pick him, the Jags will. That's a great fit. Really, both franchises. I doubt either of them are going to pass on a player like Travis, a player who has like the upside of Justin Jefferson at receiver and like Jalen Ramsey at corner, in one draft pick. Like, you'd have to be stupid to pass that up and let him and make him only play one side of the football. That's really it. Travis is pretty cut and dry. Shador gets complicated for sure. The situation that you touched on, like right when you first started, is the fact that the quarterback class this year is definitely weak. You have Cam and Shador, and those are the top 2 guys, and then it falls off a cliff. So after that, what you'd have like what Quinn Ewers, Milroe, Drew Aller, Will Howard, maybe. You can maybe make an argument for Riley Leonard. Those are like pretty much, you can make an argument that even like Quinn Ewers, who is probably the 3rd best quarterback in the draft in my mind, is like a 2nd round guy.
Yeah. And I, I sort of left Quinn Ewers out of my, my little monologue there.
Yeah.
Extensive monologue with brutal detail. But Quinn Ewers is definitely the more polished passer than Milroe, but Milroe has all the physical talents that you think you can coach. And so those 2 dudes, it'll be interesting to see how the 3rd and 4th quarterbacks potentially come off the board, with one of them being a physical freak and one of them being more of a true pocket passer.
Definitely. And I, just with how the draft looks in the quarterback class, and the top 2 teams in the draft are both pretty desperate to get a quarterback. I think that the Deshaun Watson experiment has run its course. And I think that Cleveland does not like him. And they're ready to move on. So I think it's going to go they're going to go 1-2, Cam and Shador are. And it's just what order will be, what order will that be? If you believe the rumors, it'll be Cam Ward 1, Shador 2. There's also a possibility that you didn't touch on, that a team trades up to get a quarterback. I don't think that Tennessee would trade the number 1 pick. I think Tennessee is probably pretty pretty settled in there and is for sure going to pick a quarterback. Cleveland, you could make an argument for Cleveland trading out, or Cleveland picking a non-quarterback, which would make things interesting. You do have Deshaun Watson under contract. Yes, he's out for, I think, is he confirmed to be out for the entirety of 2025?
With the injury?
Yeah, he retore his Achilles like a second time, right?
Right. I'm not sure. He definitely won't have an off season. I don't know. Definitely will not have an off season. As far as his outlook for 2025, I think that injury can vary quite a bit person to person. But
yeah,
that time frame will probably leave him coming back right around the first 4 weeks of the season next year, which and even then you don't feel great about it. A guy who already hasn't had success coming off of an injury. You already have tons of concerns about it. Now you just wonder, how do they navigate the contract situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's, I don't think that Shedeur falls further than 6 with the Raiders. I think that the Raiders would be ecstatic at the opportunity to pick Shedeur if he fell to them. To be quite frank, I just don't see that happening. They're going to need, if they want Shedeur, they're going to need to make a move and trade up to either 1 or 2. They got the draft capital to do it, but I don't think that Tennessee is going to budge.
Right, and so that number 2 pick right there, we could see a bidding war. Let's say the Browns, for whatever reason, whether it be financial or something else, they decide Shedeur Sanders is not their guy. They're going to keep Deshaun Watson out for the rest of his contract and not pay him to sit on a couch somewhere. If that's the case, we will see a bidding war for that second pick, I think. Giants and Raiders and maybe even another team or two, try to see what they can do to move up to that number 2 pick if the Browns have put out, because by that point, those other teams will probably be relatively informed on the fact of if the Browns intend to go with a quarterback or not. And this is all going to be dependent on free agency as well. So if you guys are very interested in trying to, see or predict where Shedeur goes, keep an eye out for who picks up quarterbacks and who's willing to spend money on quarterbacks in free agency. Because let's say the Raiders go out in free agency and do absolutely nothing. That's going to point us in a direction that the Raiders are going to really try to move up there.
Yeah. Is there anything else to add NFL draft wise?
No, draft wise, there's some fun dudes near the, Hill Green is not going to be declaring for the draft. So the other guy I'd say to keep an eye on is maybe Will Shepherd. Will Shepherd, you could see him go 4th, 5th, 6th round. Who knows? Tons of upside and seems to be a great dude. I think Will Shepherd, I think you could justify him as high as a 3rd or 4th round pick. So I think he's the next buff to come off the board after Shedeur and Travis, more than likely. So I'd say keep an eye on maybe Will Shepherd's draft stock as the draft gets closer, because guys with that level of talent and those physical attributes, they typically don't last long in the draft.
Yes, and Jack has arrived. We'll pop him in here so he doesn't have to sit and listen to us without any input.
What's up? I'm here. I didn't know we had Timothy Chalamet on the pod, dude. What the hell?
Lizan Al-Gaib.
Yeah, man. Look
That's
at this. Look at this lettuce.
I totally.
That's funny. I just shaved the mustache and just got a haircut, so it's kind of seems like I'm playing.
Yeah. Well, I've done neither. And did I already miss the Bill McCartney tribute?
No,
nope.
You did not.
Nope. We were leaving that to you. We were also leaving some of the recruiting news to you. You're the most informed recruiting guy, so those things were left sort of to you. We covered the Alamo Bowl, and we talked.
Glad to miss.
A lot of negative takes there. And then we talked about.
We kind of sped past.
Yeah. And then we talked about draft stocks, and I think now we're potentially moving into. We'd like to talk about recruiting. I think we'd like to talk about the Dion news potentially. He's been in conversations with the Cowboys this week, so those were our 2 other topics. But yes, also the tribute.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for the catch up. I'm ready.
Okay. Let's just rip off the recruiting Band-Aid, I say. It's been what, like it's been a month since we've really like sat down and done something like this, so we got a lot to catch up on. Where should we start, Jack? Where do you think we should start?
For recruiting?
Yep.
Well, I think this is a natural point that it looks like we're done with portal stuff until the spring. So I think we can kind of look back on those guys. A lot of them are already in Boulder, which means that I think we should start with who's on campus and what we've seen so far. Sound good?
Sound good. Who are you thinking? Who you want to start with?
Well, I guess let's start with the easy one, the one that's going to drive the most clicks. But I've seen now Caden Salter take some reps at quarterback. We've seen him on a few different podcasts saying that he and Juju both know it's an open competition. And he's fun to watch, man. There is some twitch. And it's not like we're watching it against air. It's not like it's anything crazy, but for the first time in 2 years, right? New face at quarterback in Boulder. And I don't think it's going to be a job that's just handed to Juju, for sure. And we said that before. I think that's even more true now.
And Caden Salter's fun, man. I don't know if anybody has watched his tape at Liberty, not necessarily last year, but 2023 when they played in the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon. That was a fun team, and he was like pretty much by far the best player on that team. If you surround him by talent and get him out of a Jamie Chadwell system, maybe this guy can ball out.
Okay, Jamie Chadwell's system.
I'm just taking cheap shots at Jamie Chadwell.
That's a good quarterback system.
I know, and
I don't want to say anything that Shermer is going to design an offense around him or anything like that. I just think they're on campus now. There's 14 new players confirmed from the transfer portal coming in. A lot of those are already here. And that was the one to start with, right? I think Salter, I think he and Juju Lewis both looked the part. I was not expecting both of them to look as big or bigger than Shedeur already, but I think they both do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun to watch the competition unfold, like you said. It's not going to be handed to one person in particular. It's going to be a fair competition. Which I think is good. I don't think just kind of making or putting Juju in a position where there's no choice but to throw him into the fire is probably ideal. If he earns that starting role, I think that as Colorado fans, we can probably feel a little bit better and more confident about it because he did beat out a really damn good quarterback in the quarterback competition. So that's especially reassuring. Another player that I want to talk about, maybe not the most coveted recruit of the class, is receiver Joseph Williams from Tulsa. He's fun, man.
Yep.
AAC freshman of the year. This dude is just a deep threat burner. This guy's awesome. He's not as big as Will Shepard, but he's going to occupy probably that same role in the offense, I would expect, and that's a big get. The wide receiver position is still looking a bit thin. They're going to need to continue to address that through further portal periods. But what do you think about Joseph Williams?
I mean, he's for a freshman. That's exactly the type of guy you want to bring in, right? Yeah. I think we've seen the strategy for the last few years in wide receiver portal stuff is Shedeur's going to get you drafted, come here and boost your stock, right? Can't rely on that anymore because Shedeur's already going to get drafted. So the next recruiting pitch is you got all eyes on you. You're going to grow with these guys. Come here and be better. Have a spotlight. And that's when you bring it. That's the exact type of guy you want to bring with that pitch. He was a really talented freshman, and if you look at his freshman stats at Tulsa, it's anything. It's not that crazy. It's 700 yards about and 50 catches about. But look at where those happen, right? That's exactly what you want to see from a freshman. It all happened near the end of conference plays, the last 4 or 5 games is when he really blew up, which means that he's getting better as a freshman. It's not like he was preying on FCS teams and doing well at the beginning. He was doing great at the end. So, hot commodity. You said he wasn't that, the most coveted. He was up there for what we have so far. That dude had offers from everybody. and he was visiting a bunch of places. In fact, he committed to Utah the week before he got here,
Yeah.
right? So, a good guy to bring in. And yeah, I think like you said, he's a deep threat, dude. He's a deep threat and he's big. Here, I got the game logs for you. His last 5 games were let me do math. Okay. His last 5 games, at UTSA, 4 catches, 55 yards. At UAB, 6 catches, 112 yards and a touchdown. At East Carolina, 5 catches, 160 yards, 3 touchdowns. South Florida, 6 catches, 126 yards, 1 touchdown. And then against FAU, 4 catches, 65 yards, 0 touchdowns. So near the end of the year, he's averaging about 20 yards a catch and just under 100 yards a game, with about a touchdown a game. That's pretty good. You'll take that, you know. He's a fun guy. That's a good pick. Jake, did you have a name?
We can't hear you, Jake.
Oh, there we go. I don't know what was going on. I think it's starting to look like we have a better idea of who our starters might be. I don't know that we'll. And Jack, you're going to be more keyed in on this than I am. But would you expect any more big names? You know, any guys who are potentially going to be playing bulk snaps at the receiver position, or can we expect more so? You know, that 3rd, 4th, and 5th string guy kind of come in, or you know, how do you view the state of the receiving room right now?
Yeah, so I think from what I know, I think they swung at Branch, but good luck beating Georgia. All right, is where they ended up. The Branch brothers ended up at Georgia, I think. And I think that if they weren't going to get a huge name, then they absolutely going to put faith in the guys that are here. I also know that they love the guys that are here. Ryan will tell you that too, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're going to see Ryland everywhere. Cam McKell almost suited up for the bowl game. Or maybe he did suit up for the bowl game. I didn't see much.
He didn't enter the game, I don't think, but he was in full uniform.
There you go. Yeah, I think they love Cam McKell. I love Cam McKell, so I get it.
He's awesome.
I think they love the people who they brought in as freshmen last year, and I think there are worse places to be than Omarion Miller being a number 1 option on offense. I'd want better places too. We've had better places the last 2 years. I don't think there's a name that I know that's visiting or that we're waiting on that is going to come in and be like, oh yeah, that's the guy. I also think that we're going to rely less on our boundary receivers beating dudes and then Shedeur chucking it to him as the offense next year. So that will help mitigate that impact. But no, I think we're pretty much done with starters. I think, like I said, who you think is going to be there is going to be out there. I think it's Omarion Miller on the boundary. I think Joseph Williams will absolutely start. And then Draylon Miller is going to be somewhere in there. But I also think there's going to be way less 4 wide receiver sets. So that might be your whole – there's your starting lineup, right? I don't think there's any names that we should expect, like, our big names coming in.
Can I throw a name out? It's not a transfer, but can I throw a name out that we haven't talked about yet? Quentin Gibson.
Well, that dude's gonna play. Yeah, we know that guy's gonna play.
I know he's gonna play. That guy, what? 6'8", Texas 6'8" state letters. Texas. What did he win? Like 6'8" player of the year in the state of Texas. Like that's ridiculous. This guy is a menace. Go on YouTube right now. If you haven't, go on YouTube right now and just look up Quentin Gibson highlights.
Yeah, you're underselling it, dude. Yeah, I swear to God, you're underselling it because
I know
he won National Player of the Year. Is what he actually won was Max Prep's National Player of the Year.
Shit.
And that means he had an automatic invite into the All-American game, even as a 3-star. Still a 3-star, very funny to me. But at the All-American game, he's just been destroying 5-star defensive backs during the practices. So he just gets open, which seems to be important in my mind for a receiver. I don't know if that's true or not. And the other things you're also neglecting to mention, not out of malice, but just because you're not insane like I am, and watching North Crowley's march towards the 6A championship. He I believe ended up 3rd all time for single season TDs this year in Texas 6A history. He just passed in his last game. He passed CeeDee Lamb, kind of a good name to pass, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, another, I don't know, pretty good name to pass, right? And this is not at like Westlake. I'm just going to name Dallas high schools. I don't know why I'm doing this, but it's not at a school like Westlake, or it's not at a school like DeSoto that are like established powerhouses. They recruit hard. They have a college program in high school. North Crowley, for the most part, is still pretty local, right? And he just destroyed people all year. He's gonna play. I don't know where or how much he's gonna play on offense because he's tiny. But you give him the ball, he's gonna make moves, and that to me seems like an obvious. All right, you go return punts.
Yeah, I mean this dude's gonna be electric. Definitely a name to keep your eye on. Who else are we missing?
For transfers, who else are we missing?
For transfers.
Yeah, so I think some of these guys, once again, are not all the way in yet, but we should keep an eye on. I think CU closed out really strong with some of the dudes that we thought CU was going to be in on with the money that they had to play with this year. Zy Chrysler is a huge piece on the interior of that line from Illinois. He started at tackle this year and got benched. We don't want him at tackle. We want him at right guard, and at right guard, he will move people around. He's 6'6", he's 330. That's a good guy to have in there. He started for 3 years at Illinois under Burt Bielema, who they are not the old Illinois. They were like solid. You know, he's a solid player. Good guy to bring in there too. Let's see. The other big name that just came in on the offensive line. Oh my God, why am I blanking on this? Thank you. Mana Taimani, another gigantic man. I don't think he's going to play that much, but he has experience at all five positions at the offensive line. And 6'4", 350, he's not going to do you wrong too much as long as he can move a little bit. Final name that came in at the very end here that I think is my favorite name and will absolutely be one of my favorite players next year is Martavius French.
Yeah.
Have you guys been watching Coach Prime season 3?
I have not. I need to though. It's gonna be weird to watch that. It's like watching a documentary that you lived through.
Yeah, what I'll say is we're in a weird time as a CU fan where like I remember loving the Rise video series, and I still do love the Rise video series. I'll watch that every offseason, partially because no one else was talking about us, and so it felt like that was really cool insight. No one else had that stuff, and it was a really cool story. I just love that team, right? And it's weird because Coach Prime is like what I would want for something like that. It is a full Amazon-produced documentary. But because CU is everywhere right now, anyways, I'm like, it doesn't feel that pressing. I don't know. I'll watch it at some point, which is what I kick myself because, like, enjoy this. This will never happen again, so enjoy this. But if you have watched a little bit of it, the Kansas State episode is pretty interesting. They don't do that much in-game stuff. They do some in-game stuff, but one of them that happens is on that last drive. Basically, Deion Sanders is like, because DJ Giddens had that 40-yard catch. He's like, why did that happen? Livingston's like, it's man-on-man. Linebacker had the guy. And Deion Sanders is like, well, you should know what linebackers can't cover. So that was in the documentary, and I think, I don't know, you guys agree with that, right? That Hill Green and Bentley are not natural cover linebackers.
Yeah, they're both heavier, and despite the fact they played successfully within that roles, I mean, like, those dudes aren't flying all over the field. Like, those dudes aren't dropping 10 yards past the line of scrimmage and making crazy plays in coverage. I mean, they're doing what they have to, and they played well enough to fit the scheme. Those are big bodies. Like, those dudes are a little bit. I mean, those are like run-stopping linebackers who played a successful role. But my gosh, they're not flying around the field by any means.
1000%. Yeah, I mean, like we said in the Alamo Bowl recap, it's like we learned how much Hill Green meant to the run defense when we didn't have him. Yeah, Martavius French is a phenomenal get though.
So I think that's where I was going with this. Is French is not. Well, if you look at Jalen Wester, he is a cover linebacker, and Jeremiah Hughes can also move around a little bit, and Kylan Salter, another addition, can cover. Like they're getting rangier guys for that linebacker room than we had last year. Martavius French is not a rangy guy at all. He is the opposite, but what he is maybe the best single run-stopping linebacker in the country last year. I think maybe Ryland and I had the same exact realization where I saw a linebacker that was visiting that had 80 tackles and 17 TFLs. And I was like, oh, great. I would love an edge guy. I love an edge guy. Because 17 TFLs means it has to be that. It has to be, right? And then you watch him play, and no, that dude is like as middle as they come in middle linebackers. And if you want to watch fun run defense tape, no better version of that, right, than UTSA's bowl game where they played against Army. Like, I don't know. That's the definition of a running team, right? And Martavius French was destroying the inside of that option every single play. So I think that is an actual, somehow it's an upgrade. I think Hill Green was really good, and I love Hill Green, and I will love him in Alabama. I think that Martavius French is better if you go by what we have. And I don't know. I think that's going to be the biggest get. Him and Otis together in the middle of that team is immediately showing up that run defense.
1,000%. One name that we haven't mentioned, and I don't know. We can probably close it out here. And I don't really know how to pronounce his name, so apologies in advance. But the USF safety, Tafik Bayard, yeah, that's a plug and play guy straight up. And safety was something probably the single.
We still need more, by the way.
We're not done. But that's a really solid snag for like a plug and play starter type guy.
Can I ask? And you guys are going to be my resource here because I don't have the answer. I know we obviously lost Shiloh. We obviously are going to lose Cam. Both those guys being seniors, I believe. But we had a lot of good depth at safety last year. How many of those guys are we losing? And so the three names that come to mind for me, I believe we've got a few seniors there. Travis J, Savion Riley, and then Carter Stoudemire. Of those three dudes, are all three gone or just two of them? I'm not necessarily clear on that.
So just Jay is leaving.
Yes.
What I'll say is Robert Livingston is a safety coach by trade, and there is absolutely no reason we can't upgrade over Savion Riley this offseason. Not to single him out, but I think that Stoudemire they love in that play whatever we need situation. Or sometimes it's safety. I like him at safety. Sometimes it's nickel. I think they like that he can kind of do all of it. Meaning that Riley's the only guy left of that group. And, across the board, shout out to Coach Sims, Maurice Sims. CU was incredibly healthy for most of the year last year. Like, Shiloh was the only guy that missed time in that back end consistently, right? I think Travis missed some time, but McKinney didn't miss a game. Colton Hood didn't miss a game. Cam Stillman-Craig missed, one game, right? Just North Dakota State second half?
Yep. Neither of the linebackers, Bentley or Hillgreen, missed any time. We learned in that Alamo Bowl if either of those guys would have gotten dinged up, we would have been fucked.
Yeah, well, and that's not going to happen again. You just can't bet on that. So
no, it was insane luck. Insane luck.
So if you go through this safety, you lose Ian Massey, the transfer portal. He's a walk-on. Who cares? I shouldn't say who cares, but he wasn't going to be playing time anyways. Nate Watson is a walk-on. Ben Finiseth is a senior next year. He's a walk-on. Carter Stoudemire will play. Shiloh Sanders is graduated. Savion Riley is staying. Cam Stillman-Craig is graduated. Herman Smith is graduated. R.J. Johnson will play. He'll play next year for sure, and he's rangy. Travis J is graduated. So you lose most of your safeties there in that, or should say scholarship safeties in that group. I like the guys that are staying, but I think we still need more depth. And I do think Makari Vickers is going to be kind of both, what do you call that, gadget cornerback too. But like I said, I think there's no reason we couldn't upgrade on that spot, and maybe we still can. I just think that why would you not want to play for Livingston right now as a college safety, and why would you not want to play for CU? Like, doing better than Shiloh Sanders next year is going to be an easy way to get publicity. So, yeah.
Yeah. Is that it for transfer portal? I know we're kind of running short on time here.
Okay.
I think Jake has a hard out at.
I'm hard out at 6:30, but if you guys wanna keep chugging along, feel free.
We can keep chugging.
New punter alert and new kicker alert. Shout out Damon Grieve.
True.
Shout out Buck Buchanan.
Buck Buchanan is going to be a dog, man. That guy's awesome.
And then the other thing is just a general observation. If you watched the recent well-off, they introduced everyone who's in town to the team. We just are gigantic. Like, every single dude they brought in, you're like, are you kidding me? They make guys that big? Like, look at Gabriel Lightfoot, dude. Look at Aki Ogun... oh, my God, I'm going to miss this. Aki Ogunbiyi. Those guys are just huge humans. And when you bring in guys like Chris that are huge and have played a bunch, not that much going wrong there. So I think, CU's new win total is at 7.5 next year. If early look ahead, I think a lot of that's built on the strength of the line of scrimmage, which is a fun turnaround from where we were 2 years ago.
1,000%.
7.5 is an interesting number because those non-conference games. I could be mistaken here, but I believe we've got Delaware.
Yep.
Georgia Tech.
Wyoming.
Yep.
Wyoming.
Home.
Those are already much easier non-con games than we had this year. So, I mean, they're expecting us to potentially probably, have a pretty rough outing within conference play.
Well, those non-conference games are scheduled like years upon years upon years ahead of time. Those were probably scheduled.
Right.
Well, Carl Durrell. The Delaware one is actually the Delaware one was scheduled maybe a year ago, but the Georgia Tech and Wyoming games were scheduled a long time.
But assuming we're favorites in those games, and we might not be favorites in that Georgia Tech game. Georgia Tech has, they've improved a lot.
Yeah, they can run the fucking football.
They've improved a lot. So that tells me, we're expected to go 4-5 or 5-4 within conference play.
Yep.
Which, it's funny that our expectation is actually better than last year, given how many starters we're losing. Any other team in FBS, if they lost this many starters, and especially
who's saying that? Is that your expectation? Is better than last year?
No. I'm saying
like the expectation going into the year.
Going into the year. Because last year we were projected to probably win something around like 5.5 games, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I got it at 4.5 at the early, but yeah, it was 5.5.
Right, so it's funny how this team proved everybody so wrong that now all of a sudden we're expected to win. Our winning margin's gone up 2 or 3 games, and we lost starters at
we lost
almost
every single.
Yeah, and every single key position we lost a starter, and we weren't necessarily a deep team to begin with, so. It's fun to see how much things have changed for CU football in the last 365 days. With a worse roster, we're favored to win 3 more games because we proved everybody that wrong, and Vegas bit the bullet, 10 times this year.
Sorry, I'm watching disaster happen behind me. Give me 1 sec.
Okay, well, maybe this is a good time. I'm at my heart out here, so. But honestly, a lot of my contributions have already been laid out. I laid out a 10 or 15, probably 5 or 10 minute monologue earlier about the draft. So, as always, thank you guys for having me on. And Jack and Ryland are going to keep chugging along with what they've got to talk about. So, thank you as always for having me, and I'll probably tune in for the rest of your guys' podcast.
Hey, see you, man, brother. Get a
Great
good
job
luck
on game day. Great job on game day this year, man.
Awesome, thank you, man. See you,
so
Ryland.
long. Okay, now that Jake is kicked off, what else do we got to talk about? Okay, I guess we let's talk about Dion to the NFL rumors, and let's address that.
Okay,
stomp that.
You're not gonna like my. All right, yeah, go for it.
I'm not gonna like your what?
My take on that.
Okay, let's hear your take on that.
I was actually debating writing an article, but that would require any time for me to have available or any forethought. But why not just say it and hope some AI note taker is recording me, and that way it can be an article later. Yeah, I think. Remember where we were? I guess 3 hiring cycles ago, man. Like, I know I don't want to keep being the guy that's like it could be worse because obviously everyone knows that when they're complaining too. But dude, like we're talking about the CU head coach dominating the entire press circuit for the last week because he might get hired by the Dallas Cowboys. This is like CU's head coach doing that. And no matter what happens here, which obviously we want him to stay, and my expectation is still that he stays. No matter what, like no one else could get us in this spot. We are in such a better spot than we were 2 years ago, and other people have won more games as new coaches in 2 years. But we were so in the hole in every single way that where we are now, even if Deion Sanders does get hired, the amount of wheels that were greased in that process means that CU will never be as bad institutionally towards football as it was before he was hired. And say what you want, no one else would cause that much institutional change, and that alone, no matter what, is worth it. So my thought is like, learn to stop worrying and love the bomb, I guess, man. Like, it's, if it happens, it happens. Have like, enjoy the ride. Get mad, like, yell at people, I guess, if you want, but just enjoy that. For some reason, everyone cannot stop talking about CU's head coach.
That's really good advice. That's where I was going with that. It's like, it's just ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. And obviously, if he does go, he's going to put this program in a position. Like, he's not going to leave this program in a shambles. It's not like he's going to go to LSU and take all the players with him. Like, no, he's going to the NFL. Like, the players, for the most part, will hopefully stay. But it's just like, it hasn't happened yet. Don't worry about it. It's all rumors. There was a tweet by former Ralphie reporter and friend of the program, Jack Carlo, and he was like, I think it just said it was when the first Deion to the Raiders rumor was going on, like, last week, that he was like, my 2 cents on this is that if they're saying they're close to Deion Sanders and they're an anonymous source, they're not close to Deion Sanders. Like, Deion wouldn't keep a person like that in his inner circle, and that's 100% true. Take everything you hear out of from On3 or whoever with a massive grain of salt. On3, ESPN, CBS, Fox, like, gigantic grain of salt. We are in a point of the season where I can say this as somebody who knows kind of what's going on. I think people don't want to write about Ohio State, Notre Dame. They're gonna try to diversify here, and this is a good way to get clicks when there's one college football game left. So just kind of like take it all with a grain of salt. Granted, I know nothing, so I can't really provide awesome insight, but I'm not too worried about it. I'll say that. It's kind of just crazy. It's a weird place to be in.
It's a weird place to be in. That's a good way to put it. And it's I just find the histrionics pretty funny of some CU fans that I know, even of like, how could he do this to us? And I'm like, dude, do you see us? Like, anyone could do this to us. Are you kidding me? Like, Mel Tucker did this to us. Of course, Deion Sanders
Michigan
could do this
State,
to us.
not even
like
the Dallas fucking Cowboys. Like, that's God. Remember when we hired Mel Tucker and we were like, this is such an awesome hire, and then now we have fucking Deion Sanders. That's so crazy.
Yeah, man, it's a good time. It's a good time to be a CU fan still. So a lot of consternation and histrionics. I just, like I said, I'm not going to get worked up over it, which is not, that's not, like, I guess, going to get us clicks or anything, but I don't know, man. Enjoy the ride still. This is, what I'll say is, I was kind of worried of the publicity Deion's going to get when he's not coaching Shedeur and Travis. What a way to do that. What a way to keep that going. Yeah, I don't know.
The last thing I'll say about this is he went on, it was like Good Morning America, I think, and he said the only way that he'd consider taking a job in the NFL was if he was coaching his sons with an S. And that not only includes Shedeur and Shiloh, that also includes Travis. When he talks about his sons, Travis is also included in that. In Dallas, they pick 12th? There's no way that they pick either. That they're gonna that Travis, or in my mind, I don't think there's a way that Shedeur or Travis will be on the board when Dallas even picks, unless Jerry can do some devil magic and like get like the second and fifth pick or something. Like I don't see it. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll have in mind then. I just think I'm not going to get worked up about it. And if he leaves, we're in a really fun spot. It's a weird time to hire a coach, but still much more fun than we were 2 years ago. I had to think about it. And if he stays, then what a triumphant, I guess, stay. Another way to get eyes on this program. And some of the hires that we've heard made, if he does stay, make this a really exciting place to follow. If you see some of those
1000%.
hires.
2025 is going to be fun. So make sure you keep up with us on RalphieReport.com and at Ralphie Report on Twitter and Blue Sky.
There you go.
Shameless plug of the episode.
There you go.
Okay, now that the shameless plug is out of the way, I think this is the last thing.
Did I miss the ad break already?
Oh, ad break. Sorry, I'm a little rusty. That's my bad.
Just do it right before I enter. That should be pretty easy.
That's fair.
Sorry, I totally interrupted you. Keep going.
No, you're good. Coach Mac tribute. I think that's a fitting way
thank you.
to end the podcast today.
Yeah, Bill McCartney was 84 when he died, and he died after a pretty long battle with dementia, which is like the worst battle to fight. So, in a way, it's a good end because fighting dementia for that long is just a very tiring battle. Speaking from some personal experience, so I think he passed away peacefully in his sleep. In 84 in Boulder, who wouldn't want to go out that way? And of course he went out that way. Behind me in the video, and if you don't have video, that's totally fine, but I got it up, is a cartoon compilation of every game played in the 1990 national season, drawn by Drew Liddon at the time, who's a Denver Post cartoonist. And that's obviously a really nice way to... Good timing, kind of on accident for me, because I got this up 1 or 2 days before he passed, and I don't know. I think I came into CU fandom kind of backwards. I was a CSU fan growing up because my parents went there, and when I decided to go to CU for college, I dove in feet first, so I didn't know who he was until I got there. But it's the house that he built. That's 1,000% all CU football is the house that he built. He took it in 1983, directly after the worst 3-year stretch of program history until John Embry showed up. There was nothing here and no facilities, and Bill McCartney took the ultimate chance, and because he is who it is, it paid off, right? If you've ever seen anything The Gospel According to Mac, if you've ever met him, if you've ever talked to him, there's just like, I hate when you see documentaries and people talk about like a fire behind the eyes, but that's what he had. Every time there was just something completely magnetic about what he had to say because of who he is. The conviction behind everything it makes you more convicted, right? That was his magic. So, was able to sell shitty Colorado in 1983 to O.C. Oliver first, a quarterback who was a great quarterback, and then Salinesi in 1987, who was the best dual threat quarterback in the country that year. He comes out here, the rest is history in the best way. Everything about those teams under Coach McCartney were exactly what he preached. And ask any one of the players he coached if he changed his life, if they changed their life, right? That's the mark of a great coach, in my opinion too. Is he was impactful forever for all of them. So, long battle with that had him out of the spotlight over the last 10, 15 years, and also just a strange exit he had from coaching at CU. But no one else has had more impact, period, on Colorado football and Colorado athletics as a whole, you could argue, than Bill McCartney. And if you haven't looked at any of his stories, if you're new to the fandom, like, you should absolutely go see the miracles he was able to work. And the story of the 1990 team is stranger than fiction. So he's the one who wrote those stories, right? So I don't know. It's hard to lose him, but in a way, it's better for him that way. And we will obviously, every time you're in Folsom Field, it's hard to miss him.
Yeah, and you kind of talked about it, but if you haven't seen, if you're a Colorado fan, especially a more recent Colorado fan who's come on board in the last 2 seasons when Dion got here, you need to go watch at least The Gospel According to Mac, 30 for 30 on Coach Mac. It's just absolutely incredible. It's not pretty incredible what he was able to accomplish here. It's without Coach Mac, Colorado football would be nowhere close to what it is. Winning a national championship at Colorado is impressively hard. And he managed to do it once. He almost managed to do it 3 times. The powerhouse that this team was in the 90s is hopefully something will return to, but there's no certainty of that. And that's all due to Coach Mack and his ability to recruit and change lives, and build a phenomenal football program. I guess the last thing I'll say about him is my favorite quote, Coach Mack quote, is he's talking about recruiting, and you know, he's and it's in the Gospel according to Mack, and he's sitting on that ridge above 36, where you just see all of Boulder and the Flatirons, and it's like the most stunning view you can get of Boulder. And he's like, you'd have to be stupid to pick Nebraska over this. And that's the best Coach Mack moment. One of the best Coach Mack moments, in my opinion. So rest in peace, Coach Mack. Thank you for what you've done for CU football. We wouldn't be here without you. Colorado football wouldn't be. So thank you. Is there anything else before we hop off here?
Did you guys touch on the new coaching hires?
We haven't actually.
Okay. I think those are going to get finalized a little bit later too, but some of the ones that we've seen so far are, let's just mention them, So we don't know if they're done at offensive line, but it looks like Gunnar White and George Hegeman right now are both offensive line coaches. They both were with the program last year, and Hegeman comes from IMG Academy with Seton, so some familiarity there. And he played offensive line for the Cowboys with Deion Sanders. That's the connection. At running backs coach, currently Tommy Robinson is the running backs coach. Tommy Robinson is like as old hat as they get. He was at A&M. He's at LSU. He's at Big Ten programs. He's a really just seasoned hand in that room. Good guy to bring in too. We'll see if they're done there. We don't really know if they hire a different running backs coach, because Tommy Robinson was an analyst with the program last year as well. At defensive ends coach, George Hilo, who came in as an analyst and kind of like saved the defensive adjustments at halftime. Part of the reason why those halftime adjustments worked so well all year. He's coming in at defensive ends coach. So he's staying with the program. I'm happy about that. He has a good pedigree. He has a good resume. I don't know if he's going to be Vincent Dancy level. I'm going to miss Vincent Dancy, but not too shabby of a start there. And then who's the one I'm missing? Oh, the new strength coach, Mr. Sweeney from Miami. He's at Miami when the steroids were really good down there. And then he was not retained in Miami under Mark Richt. He's been at a high school and training people privately, like NFL pros privately since then. And you go watch his intro message with the team, and you're going to want to play for him too, man. Like, keeping Coach Sims and bringing in this guy, that's a legit move on the strength staff. He's good. He like I said, you go see those early 2000 Miami teams and see if he can't get people looking ripped. So, he's going to be a motivator. I think Sims is a pretty level-headed guy. It's nice to have some fire in there, I think, too. He'll bring that in spades.
Yeah. Did you touch on this new special teams coach or special?
No,
teams
I did not. Thank you.
Yeah. I forget his name, so that's on me.
Michael Pollock.
Michael Pollock, yes. Michael Pollock. He was with the team before. What was he? A quality control coach. I'm trying to remember. It's my memory is not awesome.
He was at Jackson State, and he is kind of offensive line assistant, quality control. Yeah, he's just been around. He's one of those many analysts, but he's been with Deion Sanders for like 4 years now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
it's good to have a guy. I'll say that.
I'm just really happy we retained Hilo. That was big. If you ever, there's been multiple moments. There's been probably 4 or 5 moments where Deion has been asked about him in press conferences throughout the last year. And it's super telling about how good he is, just how Deion talks about Coach Hilo. So, yeah, that's a big get. And George Hegeman is also, that's a nice snag.
Yeah, keeping him around is great. Yeah,
Keeping him around.
I'm still of the opinion that they're not done at the offensive line coach level. I think that's for spring until some things get shook out, and maybe Deion Sanders leaves. So who cares? But I think that that's going to be a good stopgap now. I don't think it's done.
Yeah, I think that's it for us though, right? Is there anything else?
I had nothing else.
I think that's it. Maybe one of these days we'll hop on the mic and talk basketball. Who knows though?
They have to win before I do that.
That's true. This has been tough. It's been not fun. Hey, BD looked good though last night.
He and Jop are gonna be sweet, but
I know it's gonna take some time though.
Someone needs to make a free throw.
They need to stop turning the ball over like it's their job.
Well, okay, you can just copy paste that for like all 15 years of Deion Sanders. So
Sanders.
Deion Sanders. Wow, Tad Boyle. Wow, he's gonna hate that. Oh, don't tell Tad I did that. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, you can. You can. Oh well. I won't rat on you to Tad next time I see
Thank
Tad.
you. All right, man. Well, that's all I had. Thanks
That's
for letting me
all
on.
I got too. Yep. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back at some point in the future when there's enough to warrant talking about. Take care. Let's go Buffs. Let's win the off season.